Hi there, I'm Ann Taylor Pittman, Executive Editor at Cooking Light Magazine. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I have a really fun and very easy and very fast recipe to share with you today. I'll be making black bean and mushroom burgers. It's great for a meatless Monday, so let's get started. I have here one 15-ounce can of black beans that I've rinsed and drained. That just gets kind of the beanie gunk off and kind of rinses off if there happens to be any sort of tinny flavor on the beans. It rinses that off. So that's one can. I'm going to put half of that into a food processor. And I'm just eyeballing it here. You don't have to get crazy with your measurements. I'm leaving half in the bowl here, and I'll explain why in just a little bit. So that goes in, and then I have 2 ounces of cremini mushrooms. These are also called baby Bella mushrooms. They have a really rich, sort of meaty flavor, and they're really wonderful in this recipe. So 2 ounces is about 4 medium mushrooms. No need to trim or anything, they just can go straight in there. Okay, and then I have here 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed. So when you look at the store for flaxseed, you'll often see it labeled flaxseed meal. It's great in these burgers because it helps bind everything together. Flaxseed meal is a great pantry staple to keep on hand. It contains omega-3 fatty acids, which are really good for you. And we have online 15 other great ways to use flaxseed meal, everything from pancakes to smoothies to breaded fish. So check that out. We put that up. Also, I have a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. Okay, so let me stop for a second to fess up about this. We labeled this recipe as vegetarian. It is meatless, but it is not strictly vegetarian, and that's because of the Worcestershire sauce. So any of you eagle eye or smart viewers out there, why is Worcestershire sauce not vegetarian? Do y'all know? Because it contains anchovies. We're going to use it here. We love the flavor. Again, to us, this is still a meatless Monday meal. But if you want to keep it strictly vegetarian, instead of the 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, I would use 2 teaspoons of soy sauce or tamari, plus 1 teaspoon of lemon juice or cider vinegar. And that'll give you that salty, tangy balance, just like the Worcestershire would. Also, we have a ½ teaspoon of black pepper, just to keep the flavors nice and bright. I'm going to add about ¼ teaspoon of kosher salt and a ½ teaspoon of ground cumin, one of my favorite spices, just really earthy and rich. 1 large egg that I've kind of beaten up a little bit, and then 1 garlic clove. Now this all goes into the food processor, and we're just going to blend it up for about a minute. You just dump everything in and let it go. I have some mushrooms that are refusing to blend up, so I'm going to try to dunk those down there and give them a stir. What I love about this is everything goes in. I didn't even chop the garlic because you're going to be blending it up for about a minute. It's all going to get pureed anyway. Okay, perfect. So we have this nice puree here. And then I'm going to add it to the bowl with the whole black beans. So we left these black beans whole to give it some texture. You want some bits to kind of chew on. So that's what the whole black beans are going to provide for us, just that wonderful texture. If everything were mushy, it might not be the best black bean burger you've ever had. So if you're just joining, we're doing a wonderful Meatless Monday recipe here. These are black bean and mushroom burgers. They come together super quick. I've just blended together some black beans, flaxseed meal, an egg, some spices, and 2 ounces of cremini mushrooms. Okay, so I'm just going to mix this in. And then I have here 1/3 of a cup of whole wheat panko. So panko is that wonderful coarse, the wonderful coarse breadcrumbs. And that's going to help kind of suck everything together and bind everything together as well as the flaxseed meal. Okay, so this all gets mixed together. It's a nice sort of loose mixture. Don't worry about that. It's going to firm up. That egg, as it cooks, is going to kind of firm everything up and hold everything together. Okay, so that's the mixture. Nicely spiced. I can smell the garlic. It's really lovely. So over here in a cast iron skillet, I'm going to add a tablespoon of canola oil. And then because this mixture is so nice and soft, I'm just going to spoon it into a 1/2 cup measure and just kind of dump that out into the pan. I'm going to do all of them, and then I'm going to kind of flatten it so we're not going to end up with these mounds. If you're just joining in, I'm doing some mushroom and black bean burgers, or I think it's called black bean and mushroom burgers, which is a perfect meatless Monday, quick dinner, comes together from start to finish in 20 minutes or less. So I've just spooned the black bean mixture into this cast iron skillet. It's a little bit soft. I use the measuring cup to just sort of dump it out, and then I've just kind of flattened it a little bit. So those will go for about 2 to 3 minutes on each side, and while that's going, I'm going to do some of the burger toppings. So we have a nice avocado puree that we get to do. So let's see. The way I've learned to test avocados for ripeness is to press here and here. If you're pressing here, you're just kind of ruining the avocado for every shopper who comes after you. This is from the avocado board. This is what they taught me. This one feels really nice, so I'm going to cross my fingers that he's a good one. So I know that I read in the news over the summer that there were a lot of avocado injuries. We're not going to have an avocado injury here today, and I think it comes from when people want to get that pit out and they take the knife and they thwack it, but maybe they miss and they hit their hand. So I'm going to, for safety, I'm going to place this here on the cutting board with my fingers clear, and then get the seed out that way. Okay. So this guy is perfect. We have some spice, some cumin spice in the black bean burgers. That's going to pair beautifully with this avocado. I just kind of feel like some sort of nice sort of southwestern flair, southwestern flavors. I like to just dig in and get the guy out of here instead of spooning it out with a spoon. I think it's a little easier that way. Pardon my messy hands, I'll wipe them up.
And we have a question from Beth. She says, if you don't have flaxseed or mushrooms, can you substitute something, or would you just leave it out?
So if you don't have flaxseed, I would just use another tablespoon or 2 of the panko. That will work fine. You need that extra little bit of binding so that these burgers won't fall apart. Instead of mushrooms, I don't think there's really a good substitute. I might maybe add a little bit of soy sauce if you're not using the Worcestershire, just to amp up the flavor, because what the mushrooms do is they add just sort of a savory, meaty quality. We always talk about umami with our recipes, or we often talk about umami with our recipes, and that's the 5th taste. So we talk about sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and then umami is the sensation of savoriness, and the mushrooms just help with that. They're super high in umami. So if I weren't using them, I might just add a little splash of soy sauce to compensate for that flavor. Okay, so I've just mashed up this avocado. I'm adding a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, kosher salt, to that. I'm going to pause for a second and flip these guys over. See, so they're nice and browned. We're getting a good crust here in the skillet. And they're firming up because as it cooks, that egg just sort of helps to bind everything. I'm going to turn my heat up a little bit because I think I'm a little bit low on the heat. Then to this avocado, so I just mashed up the avocado, added a little salt. I'm adding a couple of tablespoons of Greek yogurt mixed with 1 tablespoon of water. And that's just going to make this feel a little richer, give it a little bit of a nice tangy flavor. And I'm going to enhance that tangy flavor with a little bit of lime juice. So I always like to roll my limes, kind of get the juices going. Just about a teaspoon and a half of lime juice. I'm just going to use about half of a lime. That should be plenty. And just sort of mush and mash this all together. That's going to be our nice avocado crema if you want to be fancy. You can call it an avocado puree. You can just call it mashed avocado, but crema just sort of sounds a little fancier. So if you're just joining, I'm making black bean and mushroom burgers. I've just mashed up some avocado with a little bit of Greek yogurt. If you don't have yogurt on hand, you could use sour cream. You could leave it out if you want a thicker puree. I just like the richness and the tang that it gives. Okay, so that is part of our topping, but not all. So we also have some red cabbage. So the black bean burgers are nice and soft and tender. The avocado crema is really creamy. And so it's nice to have a counterpoint, a textural counterpoint. So I'm using red cabbage here. I love the color of red cabbage. You could also use green cabbage for sure. You could use a crunchy, sturdy lettuce like a romaine or even an iceberg if you have that on hand. So I'm just gonna cut some of this. You don't need that much, but it's nice to have that crunch. What I like to do is, so I cut off a little hunk. I'm gonna cut that in half just because I don't want super long shreds on my burger. And then I'm just gonna very thinly slice it. You don't need any special equipment, but if you have a mandolin handy, that would certainly make this go quicker. You could get some very, very nice thinly shaved slices, but knife work is fine too. So one of the things I love about these black bean burgers is that you can make them ahead and freeze them. So it just came together with a can of black beans and a few pantry staples. So if you want to go ahead and make a double batch and eat some tonight and freeze some for later, that's a great idea. It's a great thing that will save you on a downstream night when you're super busy. So to freeze them, so you saw how I scooped the patties out into the pan. So you could just scoop the patties onto a baking sheet lined with parchment paper or plastic wrap and flatten them slightly to make their shape, and then pop that in the freezer. And then once those are frozen solid, you can transfer to a Ziploc bag or some other freezer container. Then you just bake them straight from frozen, just like you would a purchased black bean burger. Bake them saute them in some canola oil for about 3 to 4 minutes per side, straight from frozen, and that will save you on a busy night. So I think we are just about ready. Let me check the other side of these guys.
And Anne, you mentioned, I know you misspoke, but you mentioned baking them. Is that a possibility with this recipe? Could you bake them instead of doing them on the stovetop?
You could definitely bake these instead of doing them stovetop. That guy didn't cook long enough. So what I would suggest is heating up your baking sheet in the oven, get it nice and hot, because one of the best parts of this is the crust that you get. So I wouldn't want to put these on a cold baking sheet and then put them in the oven, because the underside will sort of steam, and you want a little bit of a nice crust on them. So heat up your baking sheet. I would suggest 425 or 450 degrees. And then pull the baking sheet out, very carefully add a little oil to it, and then put your frozen patties or your fresh patties onto it, and you could bake them. It'll probably take about 10 minutes. If the tops look a little underbrowned, I'm impatient, and I guess I just always reach for this. I turn the broiler on just to get the top a little brown. So you could definitely do that if they don't look brown to your liking. So I have all my components ready to go. I'm going to leave a few of these in the pan because they're a little bit under brown, but I think this guy is ready to go. So to assemble, just take a nice whole wheat bun. We're always looking for whole grains and suggesting that you go for whole grains over refined. So a whole grain bun here, whole wheat bun is nice. Let's see, I think I'm gonna put the patty on the bottom.
And we have a comment from Michelle. You fooled Michelle. She says it looks just like a meat burger.
Oh, great. And it tastes delicious. Those mushrooms just add so much meaty flavor without there being any actual meat. So please try it. I mean, it's so fast. You've seen, I've made this here. I had some of my ingredients pre-prepped, but even if you don't, it only takes about 20 minutes. Okay, and then I'm going to top with some of that yummy avocado crema, avocado puree, whatever you want to call it. And get a nice generous amount. Okay. And then some of this cabbage, so I'm just going to kind of pile that on for crunch, because the black bean burgers are soft, the bun is soft. You know, if something is sort of mono-textured, sometimes that works, but often it's nice to have a contrasting texture in there. It just enhances your perception of your enjoyment. Okay, so that's it. There is our mushroom black bean burgers. Super easy, make ahead, freezable, perfect for a meatless Monday.